This panel is here to discuss how to win in West Africa's fast-evolving market. We understand that West Africa has a predominant youth population and also a rapid digital and uneven adoption, which we've seen across West Africa. In spite of all this, there is a humongous economic pressure that is also impacting how purchasing decision is happening today in West Africa. And today, we would look and explore how demography, how technology, and how the shift in consumer demand is currently reshaping marketing strategy, and also how companies can optimize spend in order to maximize impact. Now, before we go into the conversations, I would like to have a quick exercise with all of us. Now, please put up your hands if you have ever bought Guardian newspaper for Tuesday and Thursday. If you ever did that, put up your hand. Anyone? Okay, I see some few of us. Please put up your hands also if you went to that booth, that bus stop, to look at Guardian newspaper on Tuesday and Thursday. And that was how you got your first job. Most of... You didn't get the job. Okay, you didn't get the job. Okay, the next, I think the hands are few. Put up your hand again if you got that ShopRite flyer in those days and you enter ShopRite because of that flyer. How many of us? The hands are very few. Are we all Gen Zs here? We are all Gen Zs like myself, right? Okay. Then put up your hand. I think this one will resonate with all of us. Put up your hands if you had used your phone to discover a new product, or you used that phone to make purchase. Put up your hands. Please clap for yourself. Now, we all can see that the way we engage with brands are evolving, is constantly evolving. And because of that, we have this panel here to throw some light how brands would win in Africa, considering these nuances that we've all seen and all the things that we've been talking about. I'll go straight into our first question, and coincidentally, my first recipient of my question is just by my right hand. Eh? No, don't worry. It's intentional. That's why you're by my right hand. So you are the son of the right hand. Okay. Okay. I'll go to the first question. Now, Ayo, considering your experience in Africa, this question also goes to you. Now, knowing that 60% of West Africa are under 25 years, now, how are you adopting product and messaging in order to be able to connect with Gen Zs and millennials, these Gen Zs and millennial consumers? Thank you.
Okay, I hear two things. I hear Gen Zs and millennials. I hear messaging. Okay, actually three things. And then I hear 60%. That's a number. And they are below 25 years. So first for me is, let's delay Gen Zs.
Yeah, like me.
What was that? No, this one. He's the grandfather. So let's delay Gen Zs. Okay. What are their characteristics? And we can just talk about one or two or three of their characteristics. I think for me, Gen Zs are tech or digital savvy people. That I put a question mark behind. I think they love affordability. They love a bit of localization. They are culturally aware. They are socially connected people. They also have a global outlook. I think let's just keep it at those ones. If that is the case, then these are the people that we want to talk to, and these are their characteristics. Let me ask a simple question to the audience. How many people came outside of Lagos, who are residents outside of Lagos for this event? Just your hand, please. It was, you saw it outside of Lagos and decided to attend. Okay. Cool, good. At least we have about 10 or so hands here. What does it speak to? Some bit of communication. Communication, and I'm sure based on tech, digital. And so even though you are not a Gen Z like Xavier that I know there, but you came. You were influenced by digital, by technology. So if I want to reach and connect with a Gen Z, I must ensure that I am talking to him or her, permit me, as the case might be, on his touch point, on his platform, where it's easy to reach him. Some time ago, I was looking at a report that shares that on the social media, you have TikTok. TikTok downloads have exceeded over 3 billion downloads, which is more than the combination of X and Instagram. So it tells you where to play immediately. Okay? So, I mean, it's a no-brainer for one to start to say, look, I need to begin to address where these guys are. And why is TikTok driving? And I'm not trying to sell TikTok here, but it's because of its very short and direct messaging opportunities that it allows. So for me, tech, if you approach Gen Zs through tech, message them through tech, you will reach them, you will connect with them, your brands will thrive. I think two, we talked about, and I mentioned something around cultural awareness or localization, if you want to call it. And I will share an idea that we tried some time ago. For a particular brand we had just launched, and it looked like this brand was going to be more attractive to the more mid-class or middle-aged adults. And then we decided to do something around music, cultural music that resonated with the populace. And it became like a challenge with winnings. You will be surprised that the guys that won were not even the urban dwellers. It was the rural guys that were winning the star prizes on a weekly. Okay? This speaks to something else, but it's just to let you understand that the Gen Zs or the millennials are connecting through cultural messaging. So if I want to message, if I want to connect to an audience, Gen Zs, millennials, I will be approaching my engagement through cultural platforms. Entertainment is a very big and massive platform for connecting with these guys. And sorry, it's not just the millennials and Gen Zs, okay? It's even people like me. There's a part of culture that you will connect with me. There are those that if you probably play some Sonny Ade's music, you'll see me nodding my head to it. You see me play, you play some Boys to Men, I'll nod my head to it. It's my generation, okay? But there are those entertainment platforms that are available that we can use to communicate, to engage with consumers and potential market players. I think that's keeping it simple for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Still speaking on platforms, I'll head to Faye. Now, building on this, how are social commerce platforms fitting into the evolving consumer behavior? Now, specifically, we know that we have a mobile-first West Africa that we still heavily rely on informal trade in that way. So how has these platforms, how have they evolved over the years in West Africa for us?
Thank you. I think one of the things that the social platforms have done very, very well, I think perhaps faster than brands, is the fact that they've adapted to the storytelling nature of the African consumer. And if you look at the Gen Z consumer, for instance, they are a bit of a cultural mongrel, if you understand what I mean. They've got in there some Western culture, they've got a bit of African culture, they've got a bit of tribal identity in there. The same Gen Z person that will tell you that some aspects of African culture are, belated and they're outdated and they're embracing Western culture. if you bring up tribal issues, they become extremely defensive. So you see that panoramic display but the thing that connects all of that is that at the heart, the African consumer is a storytelling consumer. They are connected to by storytelling. So what the platforms have done extremely well, we're talking about TikTok, for instance, just now. It's been able to, if you look at the format of the content that wins on that platform, it follows storytelling format. The videos are not linear in the format of their content. They are very secular, which is how typically a good storytelling framework is structured. So I think that's one big thing that they've done really, really well that brands can learn from. And of course, because it's technology, they've been able to adapt faster, and they are more or less even defining for brands now how brands should then engage with the consumers.
Okay. Because you mentioned storytelling, I know Faye has a book called The Villager, how consumers, how Africans consume brand. Yes, thank you. This is also about storytelling. What examples have you seen that maybe you can share across West Africa, good storytelling, and how this resonates with especially the Gen Zs and the millennials today?
More than an example is I can share a pattern that we've observed across both in work we've done in East Africa and in West Africa. Strangely enough, one of the things that characterizes the African is what I fondly call the value of the enemy, which is the fact that the African is not motivated by the so-called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. We've all been taught this in marketing. Yeah. Actually, Western scientists, social scientists, psychologists, and co. have debated that framework applies primarily to an individualistic culture, not a communal culture. And what we found that applies in a communal culture like Africa is the value of the enemy, which is the need to make a statement with your success and achievement in life. Mm-hmm. Now, in all the studies we've done, we've found the thing that shocks us the most is that this particular attribute is strongest in Gen Zs, not in older people above 45, under index on this every time. And I was shocked to see that. I thought the older generation will, because it looks like a cultural, very Raz value. I don't know the Oxford translation for Raz, but figure it out. Very Raz kind of value. But what we've seen is actually strongest in the Gen Zs. Again, to my point earlier that the Gen Zs are actually cultural mongrels. You have multiple strands of culture going on within them, and you have to figure out the right one to. But that's one pattern that I can point to straight away.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would go straight to Barrett, but this on a separate question. So here. I know you've seen firsthand how brands navigate trust and loyalty, especially in challenging times. How has inflation and shrinking wallets altered significantly loyalty patterns? Are our consumers trading down today based on the economic realities that we're faced in West Africa today?
Thank you. So I think I'd like to approach this question by first distinguishing between brand loyalty and purchasing patterns. So in terms of brand loyalty, you have the emotional connection, and then of course the purchasing patterns is how you buy. So yes, acceptedly, the economy has put a squeeze on the consumer wallet, and what you see is the concept of value sensitivity. That is where the consumer perceives value. It intersects with the price, what they need at the time. So I wouldn't necessarily say connect it in terms of loyalty and the down trading, but more around the value sensitivity in terms of what value that the consumer puts on the goods.
Okay.
Another thing that I would like to introduce is that in terms of loyalty, if you put it on a spectrum of from commodities or consumables all the way up to the high end, you can almost see the loyalty move along that spectrum as well. So when you're talking about it from a commodity perspective, functionality is what is key. But as you move further up the spectrum, then you can now begin to place a higher value on the things. So in terms of, again, I think from an organizational point of view, how does one navigate this dynamic? It's about staying the long haul and showing empathy to the consumer in terms of the economic situation. So being creative about the value offering that we share to the consumers. So things like bulk breaking or packaging, that's really the way to go. The consumer loyalty, in my opinion, doesn't die. Latency does not mean loss. So at the inflection point, when things do change, the squeeze is no longer a squeeze. What you see is that the consumer rebounds and then continues with that purchase. So it may not happen as often, but it doesn't die.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think maybe the follow-up question would now be, are consumers trading down, or are they prioritizing trusted brands despite price hike?
So that's why I spoke about the spectrum.
Yes.
So I think it depends on where the product plays.
Yeah.
If it's a commodity where there's little differentiation, then it's easy to downtrade.
Okay.
But when you go higher end, what would happen is that you would delay the purchase. If I used to buy something 3 times a year, maybe one time a year.
Okay.
Or again, if from the organizational point of view, they introduced something like a lighter package, I would still be loyal to the brand, but take the lighter package as opposed to the full option.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thank
just
you.
to add, I think, so talking about lighter packages, which would be, what would we call it now? Shrinkflation?
Shrinkflation, yes.
Yeah. You shrink the size, still keep the price point at the same place, but there's also a limit to what you can do there. You get to a point where even the consumer, no matter how loyal he is going to reject you. I mean, you shrink beyond a particular point, he's going to reject you. So for me, it's when do we know when to stop the shrinking?
Okay. Is that an open question? Yes.
I mean, it's something that we all need to take back.
Yes.
We're doing it in different organizations, but just where is the tipping point? Where is the limit? It's something we need to keep behind our minds.
Okay, I'll go back to Faye first. With regards to packaging of the story, how do consumers today, in your own view, how will the brand owners today, how will they help the consumers understand that story, that journey, with regards to storytelling? Now we're downsizing. Is there a reason for that downsizing? How do brands package the story well enough that they keep the loyalty of their customers? What's your own recommendation?
So I would, just to quickly comment on that, the challenge you would have is how do you downsize, or give smaller units of your product without losing the aspirational value of the product. You have to tell the story not around affordability, but around accessibility.
Okay.
That the reason you're giving smaller units of your product is so that the household surrounding your key consumer can have access to that product at different levels. That's a better story than the story of affordability, price, and all of that. Because Africans are extremely aspirational, and even in the midst of the pandemic, the recession, and all of that, we're still buying expensive stuff. We never stop. because we rebel against the idea of that things will go down and all of that. So you have to you have to walk that line very carefully, not to signal that the products or the brand is no longer aspirational.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll go to Franklin now. I'm sure you've been waiting. Leveraging on your expertise now in building connections, what would be your key recommendations for brands currently struggling to connect with their target demography? So if you remember, Ayo spoke about meeting them at their point. What are your recommendations for brands?
So, first of all, I think the best way to look at it is, first of all, demystify how we categorize them as target audiences. Because if we use that one-sided approach, which is very linear, then we miss a lot of opportunities on the table. Right now, you can see that there are various things people want to gravitate towards too. Like I said, it could be aspiration, it could be a point of fear of missing out, it could be just because of peer pressure or how you look in terms of what you're doing. The best way to categorize them right now is to understand that more and more, with the evolution of technology and the growth of what we are getting used to, audiences are becoming more fluid. You can't put them in a box anymore and say, Franklin is 20 years old, he has 1,000 naira, he lives here. And then based on that, let me target all of them, let me use TV and digital. It works, but at the point of either introduction of a product, it runs out after a while, then you have to do another campaign. So the way to look at them is to understand that targets are fluid. So rather than look at them as target audiences, understand that we now have people that want to be involved in what you're doing. So I will call them maybe participant audiences with fluid identities. That means that same person who probably, I'm just using this as an example, goes to church regularly Wednesdays and Sundays, but in the evening wants to also understand his astrology and spirituality, just because that is the WhatsApp group he or she is involved with, and he wants to immerse themselves. So if you pitch them whole in that one space of religion, you're missing out that they have a huge tribe that they're connected to on Sundays or Mondays that they want to do something else. So that one size fits all no longer works. So the way I would look at it is a point of interest and common ground. And I would rather do 15 to 20 community-based project campaigns than do one or two big size this thing. But that is the hard work we need to do, because like I said, in a WhatsApp group or Telegram, for example, you sign a 16-year-old, you see a 30-year-old manager, you probably see a 55-year-old banker. Why are they in that group? Bicycling, tennis, or stuff. Before, I wouldn't talk to the 16-year-old because I said, this guy cannot buy my streaming service. But because of that shared interest, all of them can purchase a product. I put them maybe for 2,000 naira, using that as an example, because they have the passion and the need to emerge as one face based on that stuff. So that's a community hub. Then I talked to another one, the same people who probably want to buy certain parts of meats or food stuff on Calabar Now WhatsApp group. At the point of interest, I connect them. So the thing is to first of all unravel the day in the life of those people and what are their pain points, and recreate the customer journey for each of them, targeting maybe between 5 to 7 different communities, and then customize the communication, the message, and story flow for each of them. For example, this one group might be digital and SMS. This guy might be a power ratio of 70% of watching a reality TV show and then SMS missing. So that is where the work is. And that is what we need to put it up. Otherwise, we'll be jumping into one basket and saying, I have to target them in this space. Whereas that same person has multiplicity of faces across multi-different groups. And depending on what you are selling to he or she amongst that groups, then they connect with you on a resonant basis. That's what I approach.
Thank you. Okay, so I think the follow-up for you is, considering that many organizations today are so static, very static, what would you recommend to begin to build these kinds of capability, the ability to be able to see those segments, to probe pain points or interest points, what are your recommendations for maybe brand leaders within these kinds of organizations?
It's connected to the first thing. The first advice I would give them is, especially for Nigeria, that is a multi-centric, multicultural, and like I said, it's actually like what I call the pop capital of the world. Okay. Every 2 or 3 minutes, we probably have over 1 million plus trends across the country that we're trying to leverage to. Okay. So before you jump onto that trend, it's probably spill out and jump into something else. Yeah. And you find yourself trying to tap culture or amend it or plaster it on your product, either by dressing like it, sounding like it, but the thing is, you never really come across, which is one of the most bastardized terms, authentic these days, because you're seen as force-fitting. So I don't use consumer archetypes because I feel those don't work with our market here. So I recreate your consumer archetype based on your category. And what is this, for example, working with a skincare brand based in the UK, but trying to attract Nigerians and African diaspora. And one of the things that we've been here for 10 years, but how do I talk to these people in UK, Canada, but also talk to the people in Nigeria, and I have so and so budget. How do I, first of all, we can't be doing the hero and this thing here. It doesn't work here. Yeah. It doesn't work here because so we have to recreate those things based on the category. And the other way to look at it is also look at your pipeline. Usually, we use the traditional method. I usually use, so maybe, for example, the consumer, right? How do I develop communication for them? So consumer communication, depending on the category. Then maybe commercialization. How do I make money? But in that loop, what we usually miss out is culture at the beginning. We usually want to put culture at the end. Oh, we've done this. How do we now go to this platform, bring this influencer and stuff? But the thing is, culture actually starts that day. Because how you behave, how you react to something, the symbols we use, how you talk, when you use it, characterizes all of us here as human beings, not customers, as human beings first. So that's what we miss. So when we demystify and take different assets, it can be look, it can be how you hold or weave your hair, it can be the number of times you apply something in your face. Or it could be the vernacular you use. Those accents, I will try to ascribe certain cultural assets to the brand. Maybe 5 to 6 that suits the contexture of the trend that I feel is suited for them. So again, let me use, for example, beauty and wellness. There's a lot of trends in beauty and wellness in terms of maybe you apply something to your face, you put it like a mask, and then something happens. But it also connects to us as human beings that we usually present different faces at different times. Here we have a different kind of face set that we're sharing. At home and with loved ones, we have different kinds of face sets that we're sharing. So who's the real you? Who do I really want to talk to? So I could use that, for example, just as an example, to the skincare brand and says, based on this, we can use it as a play or a storytelling method in terms of how would you like to look or talk to your friend or your loved one. And then based on those things, then we can create assets. It can be dance, it can be weave, it can be language, to create a unique packet for that brand. That is the way I would connect them. And then, based on that, like I said, which community do they spend much time in? And how do I parachute my budget to suit the way they love? That would be the best way to connect with them.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Before we continue, I'm sure we're itching to hear more questions. Please scan the barcodes so you also provide for us what questions tickle your fancy for us to actually and the panel can do justice to providing clarity and helping you understand a bit more. I'll come back to, thank you. I'll come to Fei, just also building on the culture thing. Now, from looking across Africa, what do you see as the biggest pain point when it comes to addressing the biggest challenge that most brands have when it comes to identifying pain points with regards to these kinds of segments that Franklin talked about?
Thank you. I think what I observe is that, sometimes brands don't go deep enough into a segment. And there are several reasons for that. One could be pressure of time. You need to deliver certain business results within a particular performance cycle. So there's just so much you can do. Sometimes it's because of quick wins. You know, you take too broad an approach, it impacts your P&L positively, and then there's really no incentive to, you know, look at a particular segment and see how you can go several layers into that particular segment, because on the overall, the business is doing fine. And I think the way, you know, business owners, brand owners, organizations can deal with that is to sort of organize your segments. You know, you can use many tools to do it, but the one I think is really good is the Three Horizons framework by Bill Sharp. And what that allows you to do is you distribute your segments across three horizons: your immediate horizon, what is called the managerial horizon, and then your mid horizon, which is your entrepreneurial horizon, and then your strategic horizon, which is like 5-6 years down the line. And to say which of my segments is going to add more value to me 6, 7 years, 8 years, 5 years down the line, and what do I need to do about them, which are the ones that they're giving me a lot of value today, but that value may not sustain over the next half decade, and all of that. And then put in place programs that allow you to balance all the, how you manage and how you engage all of these segments at the same time.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would still ask that we continue to pop in our votes for the questions, and would take the highest. I see we have 18 persons for question number 3, but let's keep making the votes. So I know here your votes count, so we'll be able to at least address the questions. I'll come back to Ayo. Ayo, continuing with the discussion that we had about the market nuances from your experience now. How do you think brands can succeed to bridge the gap between the urban and rural consumers?
Thanks a lot. I think first for me is maybe I pause and say, is there really urban and rural anymore? Is there really urban and rural anymore now? I mean, with the advent and the penetration of technology, is there really urban and rural? If I took it from the basic layman, 20 years ago, if you took a drive between Lagos and Ibadan, you probably would drive for almost 40 minutes without seeing a settlement. But in between, there is almost less than 5 minutes you would find something. With technology, with digital, I mean, whatever is happening in the center is seen in the village. So is it really urban and rural anymore? I don't know. I leave that on the table. I think with technology, a lot can be done in terms of bridging this divide for those who assume the divide is there. From my experience, I would say the divide does not exist anymore, especially with places I have been and lived in. And what I've seen is you will find out that what you think is really rural is really not rural anymore. In fact, purchasing power in the so-called rural is probably even higher than in your so-called urban. Okay, I'll take for instance, cocoa period. The farmer sells his cocoa. He has way more money than you will earn in 1 year that has come to him within 2-3 months. The guy is partying and balling all the way for the rest of the period. Okay? How do you reach that guy to ensure he spends that money on you? And I think that's what we need to be looking at. So instead of these broad generalizations, we need to be looking at key nuances that identify the consumer there, not necessarily by his location or residence now. Because One of the things we would say about the rural guy is he wants affordability, he has less spend power, he is not exposed and all of that. You'll be surprised. The guy with his solar panel above his roof in the village has more access to information than you in the city. You're busy, you're in the office, you've not seen a lot. The guy has seen half of his day he spent on all forms of media. So we need to be using technology, we need to be addressing and using the different available platforms to reach these dwellers or settlers, as the case might be, in whatever locations they be. For me, the word would become, let's call it not urban and rural, let's call it urban. Exactly.
Okay. So leveraging on what you said, so my follow-up question, if the world is becoming a lot urban, now the guys today in RTM, in the guys responsible for revenue growth. Now this is now coming to your urban. How will brands be able to maybe differentiate to be able to maximize the opportunity to make more profit, considering that you've made it a level playing ground across? In your own view, how does that work?
So then it becomes a lot more complex from there, because now you would have to start looking at things that the earlier panel in the day spoke to. You start looking at cost to serve to reach these guys. And you may need to start looking at, and that's where the core reason for our being convened here comes to use, which would be to start looking at cost to serve, start looking at things around how and when to reach these guys. I mean, what kind of model and approach, maybe an omni-channel approach would be best, maybe a direct, maybe using subsidiaries and all of that to reach your consumers. But we need to analyze using data to understand where the value really is and how much value to be extracted. It's not all value that you want. Some value are more expensive than what you will get. So why should I make such kind of investment? Is it going to be futuristic or is it for the immediate? I think these are all the considerations that you want to start looking at from there.
Okay, thank you. I think if some values are more expensive than the other and some values are more profitable, then tomorrow a bidder, one village in Bida will be a lot premium than somewhere in VI or somewhere in Ikoyi. So it's...
and the opportunity will also be presented where you can begin to now play on the cost to the consumer. Okay. So, I mean, some sort of a build-in the cost to the consumer. Opportunity to premiumize, basically, because I have seen places where the same brand is, it reaches the consumer at a different price point versus a particular location. And these are all opportunities that we can now begin to play with.
Okay. Thank you very much. I go now back to Faye. So this is me reaching into your book, The Villager, and maybe asking this question, trying to connect from where Ayo stopped, which is based on the emerging trends. Where do you think brands should begin to focus on to achieve penetration in the next 5 years? So I don't know if you have been inducted into the urban, but how do you help brands navigate the opportunity to be able to penetrate in the next 5 years based on trends?
Okay. Thank you for that terminology, Robin. We need to go and do something with it.
We need to demystify it.
Yeah. So I think one area to look at is to rethink households.
Okay.
The reason for that is prior to the pandemic, households was essentially a man, a woman, children, and extended people, and all of that. And when we're doing marketing planning, we think of households in that context. But what the pandemic has done is it has redefined what household is. So household is now the number of people that are dependent on a particular income, one or two incomes under the same roof. And that's how we need to start thinking about household, because obviously because of all the lockdown during the pandemic and job losses, all of a sudden the people that had income that people had to depend on changed from, the head of the home and all of those things. In urban areas, it also changed significantly. So you found that people that had the skills to get remote jobs internationally were the highest earner within a group of people. They were the ones that could pay the rent, and then everyone contributed something in the house. So that definition of household has come out now. Yeah. And so brands need to look at households that way and think differently about how you serve the household. What are the needs that are present in that household? What are the different levels of aspiration and socioeconomic class and all of that? We also need to think a lot about signaling. Africans have a strong need. We consume brands socially. So we have a strong need to always signal our progress through life by the brands that we consume. Where that is powerful is that it helps in portfolio management. Because then, if you can tap into this aspect of signaling, consumption, and aspiration, you can use that then to plan your portfolio in such a way that you can extend your customer life cycle. And you can begin to give your lower-end consumers, if you like, a taste or an experience of your higher-end products periodically, so that when their income then rises to that level, you have trained their aspiration towards a product within your portfolio, and then you keep them within that entire portfolio. So those are two key areas I'd say we should look out for.
Okay, thank you. I think one key takeout from me now is my village people, those ones that depend on me, are now in my household, right? So please know that, yes, so your village people, those who reach out to you, and also those who reach out for urgent 2K, they are now part of your household. So please, brands, watch out for the urgent 2K guys and how that goes from the pockets. Thank you. I'll come to Baron. Considering building on the shifting consumer priorities we are seeing, is sustainability now a tangible selling proposition that genuinely drives consumers' intent?
The short answer is
Yes.
no.
Okay.
At least not for this climate. But I think that it requires us to look at sustainability differently. Sustainability shouldn't be a value proposition or a selling point to consumers. Sustainability is the only way to be a going concern in the future. To be able to transform, to remain relevant, and to be future-proof, you must be a sustainable business. And so any business that is not embedding sustainability in their business model will reap the consequences when the time comes. If I take the era of COVID as an example, the businesses that didn't embrace digital transformation died or had to play catch-up, which meant that they lost market share and other things. It was just more expensive. So, I mean, from a route to market perspective and from a business perspective, of course, it's good to embed it in terms of the type of packaging we use, in terms of how we drive efficiency with logistics, and also sourcing from the right vendors. Positioning sustainability is a one step. It's a door opener. But the real thing is to embed sustainability to remain future-proof.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking that the applause should be louder than... Okay. Thank you. I think we're beginning to see signals that we need to begin to wind down this session.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me.
Okay, I'll come to Franklin. your expertise in marketing optimization is where we want to plug into. Now, with rising acquisition cost, what do you recommend for brands to do when it comes to allocation of budgets between digital, traditional media, and trade marketing?
Interesting.
That was...
It's not a one size fits all. It applies to the category and the kind of people we want to talk to. That's realistic. We were talking trade marketing, digital. So let's use, for example, maybe a confectionery product. Yeah. Someone who has a sweet tooth. You can either get them in QSRs or you can connect with them at the shopping malls. So again, I think from where I would approach it, the RTM will be very different. I will first of all start to onboard them in because the kind of category would start first in terms of how I would look at them. Then I will look at it in terms of the kind of wants they currently need and their future needs. That will look at the kind of archetypes I would develop. And I've already talked about the way I would approach those consumer archetypes. That will now in turn look at the channels or spaces to follow. Some could be specific channels, for example, talking to those confectionaries or mothers who purchase for them. I could maybe tap, for example, into a blog, a digital blog or stories that they connect with directly, and then into those that consume them directly to digital or TikTok videos. So it's a blend of genres, but the proposition is the same, but the channel and messaging has to be customized for context. So using this, for example, if I'm talking to those two people that connect with me in that specific category, it could be sports betting, for example. The way I talk to the primary could be, for example, more of education and enlightenment about what this product is about. And others could be about usage of how they apply those things with them from a look and feel perspective. And I'll probably use more visual montages, creators, and they can participate in the others. While the first one is more of information and education, because when they connect, one has to probably approve those expenses for the other. So that is the way to marry those things. Now we have a multiplicity of channels, and when you're doing your route to market, it can be, like I said, a linear model. It has to be faced. The key thing to look at will now be on which side do I bring much more value to, and where would I channel a much more of my budget? Let's say 70% would go where? Is it from knowledge and enlightenment? Would I want to do, or is it from a process of access and referral and recommendation? So depending on what your short or long-term objectives are, because a lot of times it could primarily about awareness. I want people to do a lot of attention. Let people even get to know what I'm doing. But it can't be sustained because you can't put so much value in terms of trying to reach people. The thing is, what is the value or quantity of those people that you can actually convert to use that product or to refer them on to use them? So from attention, you have to now go to attraction. Why would I naturally come to use your product or refer them to? So which channel will be best for me that they could share, participate in, and recommend? So I feel I've gotten more engagement with the one than those who I'm just trying to reach through impressions. So I could put it 20% on the attention, building, using those insights real time. We have a lot of tools that we use that to do now. Understand response, time, and mechanics, and then use that to unpack my communities. Develop 2 or 3 unique communities. One for attention, one for recommendations and creation that can participate and use for research, and others who actually convert. So I don't want to lose them because one can build into the other value ecosystem, and then segment my channels and communication to suit those things. That will be the best flow right now in this age that we are in.
Thank you. So there is no linear approach. Please, round of applause, please. So there are no linear approach. It's segment based on attention, based on the attraction you want to get, and then conversion. That's the approach. And then you segment based on the opportunities that you have within those segments. Thank you.
Sorry, just to add, a good example is you can see that there's the rise and rise. A few years ago, if you wanted to buy something, you had to feel like you had to purchase it 100%, especially for our community. Yeah. Access is I own it. People never really subscribed to anything, but post-COVID, you can see that subscription is now becoming the norm. I don't have to own it anymore. So a good example would be, rather than me trying to do rural, urban, and this thing, let people see what the bouquet, the value is on the table. Yeah. Create the opportunity. I know it doesn't apply to every category, but I'm using that as an example. If I can chase this, I know this is the next step for me to go, especially for a very Afro-optimist country like ours. So I'm going to start on there, I'm going to stream here, but that's where I'm targeting, because that's where my value is. So let people now reach out to where the value ecosystems are. That would be a very good way to apply to business. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We will take the question, right? Okay. We will take the question from the audience, but you had all voted, and I think the question with the highest vote from INEC is question 1 that has 25 votes. So we would, in no particular order, when I read, I think maybe I'll start with Baron. Baron, I would read the question and then you provide the answer first. And then we all can take a stab at the question. How do you extract actionable insight from fragmented data, e.g., social media, distributor feedback, or even SMS and surveys?
Why do you pick me first? So I think the first thing that a company needs to do is to have the ability or the capability to be able to mine the data and cleanse the data so that the data can even be interpreted to make some actionable insight. Okay. I think in the previous panel or so, Bukola mentioned the word triangulate the data. So to be able to take data from the different data sources, layer them upon each other, and then make actionable insights. But again, if you don't have the technology or the tools to be able to even do that, to house the data, to cleanse the data, to interpret the data, then you won't be able to make any insight from it.
Thank you. Ayo?
I think Baron hit it pretty much for me, because I think what I would add is just to say, first is you have the tools, but you need to go beyond that and know what to do before even having the tools. If you don't know what to do, I mean, data is there. What do you do with it? What are you trying to extract from it? And then, before you now use tools, okay? I think that for me would be the bit I would add to it.
Okay, before Faye answers, just to tweak the question a bit, considering that we have a limited data bandwidth within Africa, within West Africa also, what are your recommendations with regards to approach for mining these kinds of informal data, or mining, getting information where you hardly see information? I think that's the best way. What are your approach or recommendation?
I think that's, you have to use, the data is there. Okay. The data is there. You just have to use different ways to gather it from where they are putting the data. For instance, WhatsApp, for instance, is an excellent data source. Okay. You know, even the rural people and all of that, in quote, the informal sector, they do so much business on WhatsApp, so much business. They do a lot of business on Instagram. I keep saying we've not yet mapped the Instagram economy. You know, what's going on there, because when the government and public policy makers, when they map the economy, one of the primary proxies they use is taxation. But the tax policy says if your income is not, if your turnover is not up to 25 million, you cannot be taxed. If you look at most of the people doing business on Instagram, their income is below the tax band, right? If you aggregate those people, it's massive, and they represent a different game when it comes to supply chain completely. And they have stable customer bases that they interact with all the time. So if we adapt our tools, our data collection and interpretation tools, to the platforms and the touch points that consumers are actually using, we will be able to extract this data that's already just sitting there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Faye. I think, Franklin, maybe our last piece, so Randall, what is your one piece of advice for brands marketing in West Africa?
One piece of advice. Yes. You mustn't use the word "and." All right?
Understand cultural fluency and create infrastructure.
You don't hear word. You don't used to hear word. They say one. Round up.
Cultural fluency.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Ladies
Please, a
and
round of
gentlemen,
applause to her.
please put your hands together for them.